This is the Homesteading for Beginners podcast. This is Mona Weathers, your host. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for listening. If you're a longtime listener, thank you for listening. I really do appreciate you being here and hearing what I have to say about homesteading and starting and maintaining a healthy and, if you want to, profitable homestead. So today I'm going to talk about a topic that I feel a lot of people feel, but not too many people verbalize. And I'm going to talk about it because it is part of your homesteading journey, whether you've started yet or not. It is part of your journey to have feelings of dislike or hate. So I'm talking about a love-hate relationship with farm chores, with homesteading, because I think it's important that we understand the emotions that can come with your homesteading life. And I'm going to actually put a positive spin on this because I tend to not use the word hate very often because there's very few things I hate. But so I'm more going to use the dislike. I'm going to use the word dislike, okay? Because I don't really hate very many things. But I strongly dislike certain parts of my homestead, chores especially, or times of year. I strongly dislike it. But I'm going to actually put a positive spin on this topic because we don't live a life of loving everything all the time. So we're going to talk about that today. So first, I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna ask, have you ever had a love-hate relationship with something? This might be exercise. Maybe you know you need it. You feel good after you do it, but you hate getting started. Or I know a lot of people are doing the ice bath, the cold therapy technique right now. People gotta hate that at first, I'm sure. But because they know the benefits, they understand the benefits of what it's doing to their bodies, they actually end up loving it. So to have a love-hate relationship with something is not necessarily a bad thing, because in order for us to feel the beautiful side of the thing that the outcome of what we want, so the good feelings, oftentimes we feel those as we're going through or after we've gone through the hardship of it, the hard times of it, the hate part of it, or the strongly dislike part of it, right? We learn to appreciate the thing that we want so badly because it took so much to get there. So I have, over the years of my homesteading journey, I have cried many tears, and they have been through frustrations with farm work, like, for instance, I don't love going out in the cold. I strongly dislike it when it's really, really cold and I have to do work, and I know my cold is way different than a lot of people that have to experience cold right now. I know that I'm a California girl at heart, and we don't really get usually, we get into the 20s where we were living in California, occasionally in the 15s. And here in Georgia, it's similar. We get a little bit colder here actually than when we were in California. So we get more often than in California, our temperatures get into the teens, but it's only a few times a year. So I realize, that's why I'm living where we're living. We're living in warmer climates because we don't really like the colder climates. But I do realize that my perspective is like, not really that cold compared to where other people live. So people who live in, more northern states, probably really feel this way more than I do. So I feel for you. But I don't like to go out in the cold. I don't like to deal with the ice. I don't have to break the ice for the animal troughs. And I don't think I've ever cried tears over that particular chore, but just the whole thing, the whole having to go out in the cold. I've, used to milk dairy goats every day Dairy animals are a big commitment. And if you're thinking about getting into dairy animals, just understand that it's a big commitment. You can't skip a day. Even, you hear people talk about the calf sharing or the baby goat kid sharing. That only is for a short period of time. It's not really that long that they will share the milk with you. So if you are not keeping up with milking on a daily basis, usually at the same time every day, sometimes twice a day, depending on how much milk your goat is producing or your cow is producing, you have to milk them. I mean, they can actually have really a lot of problems if you don't milk them on the regular basis and they have just had their kids. Like they can have just problems with their udders. So it's really important that you maintain a good schedule with that. And anyway, my whole point with that is that I milked goats for like 7 years straight, and I rarely got a break. Sometimes my husband would milk for me if I was sick or if I just really couldn't do it. And when my youngest daughter was old enough, she would help as well. And I actually trained her early because I really needed the help. So she started milking about 7. And then by the time she was 10 years old, she could milk all 4 of our dairy goats by herself. She didn't do it that very often, but she could do it. And we had large dairy goat, La Manchas, and that's about, a couple gallons of milk. But she was able to. I didn't always keep the milk from her milkings because she wasn't as clean, keeping everything clean. And sometimes the goats would get frustrated with her and knock the bucket over. But I did. But she didn't know how to do it. So sometimes it depended on how she was set up, whether I kept the milk from her. But on days like if I was really sick and I really needed her to help me, I wouldn't always keep the milk for ourselves. I'd give it to the chickens or something like that. So my whole point is here with telling you the story about the milking goats is that there was many times I was in tears at just the frustration of having to do it. I didn't want to go outside and I didn't want to have to milk. But I knew the benefits on the other side of the frustration just outweighed the frustration and outweighed the dislike. So I was providing really good milk for my daughter and for our family by having these goats. We were drinking raw milk, and by having these goats, it was, that's what it took to do that. And the satisfaction that comes from going through the hardship. Everybody has experienced it one way or another, but going through the hardship and coming out on the other side is what makes the other side so wonderful, right? Because we have shown ourselves, we've proven to ourselves that we can do it. We've been able to, provide the best for our families by, providing whatever it is, whatever hardship you're having with the, whatever homesteading chore that you have that you dislike, you know that there's a benefit on the other side. Now, I have talked about, knowing when to give up on things on past episodes. I'll try to remember to link one of those episodes, but knowing when to not go overboard and add too many things to your plate is really important too. So you don't have to do all of the things. You don't have to, have the dairy goat or dairy cow or whatever you want, and, raise your huge garden that produces so much produce that you don't know what to do with. You don't have to have all those things. You can have smaller versions of it, and it's completely fine. And you can use your community. You can have connect with your community and have them fill in the gaps where you don't have the things that you want. So if your neighbor, or you know a local person that does beekeeping and they have the honey and that you can buy from them or trade from them. So just remember, there's so many ways to be more self-sufficient than just to make it all about you making all the things or growing all the things. Okay, so one of the other things that, on a farm you have is massive amounts of manure live on your farm. And I don't love the massive amounts of manure. Yes, some of it is great and you can use it for compost and you can fertilize the land and that sort of thing. But when it's a lot, when it's too much, it gets out of hand. And I don't love that part. I don't love having to deal with all of this manure. And we have 4 horses, so they produce a lot of manure. And, we have mud here in Georgia. We didn't have this issue so much in California. And when we were living in California, it was sandy ground. So usually it took very little time for any rain that would end up puddling to just dry away. And the air is drier and everything. But here in Georgia, we have, a lot of clay that doesn't soak in the water as easy. So I'm in mud all the time, and I don't love that part, but it's okay though. I deal with it. Sometimes I fall in it, but this is the part of our journey that we just really need to realize. Those moments of being, in the suck of it is just part of it, and we can sit there and just complain, or we can use those experiences to say, hey, this is toughening me up. This is making me stronger. So even though I have times or seasons of disliking things on the farm that are difficult, I still love the life. I still love it as a whole. I love the life. I love learning where my limits are, my mind, where I'm limited, where I'm like, why am I so upset about this thing? I ask myself questions. I get curious and just make sure that I'm not just living in negativity. I start asking myself questions, and I think that's something that you can do as well. If you're in the waiting period and you haven't been able to, get the land that you want, or start the homestead the way you want, just remember that this is a time for you to get really curious and learn more about yourself and your mindset, because you can carry that mindset. You can practice these skills before you have the animals in the farm, and you can, practice being strong of character, So one of the hardest parts of the homestead lifestyle when you have animals is losing animals, to death or to accidents or to predators. And we've had that many, many times over the years. It's just part of it. It's just part of the lifestyle. The animals, as much as you try to keep them alive, some will just die. And sometimes you have to actually be the one that puts them out of their misery. We unfortunately have had to do that a few times, and it's really, really hard, and it sucks. But it also made me appreciate the times that I've had with the live animal, and made me a better with animal husbandry as well. I've learned to be very on top of things, especially when you have horses, because horses tend to want to kill themselves all the time. They are the ones that get into the worst accidents. I've had, since we've been on this farm, I've had one put her leg through a corral panel gate, and she cut herself to the bone because she got her leg stuck. I had to wrap her leg for weeks and weeks and weeks after the vet came out for that. But I had to wrap her leg for weeks and weeks, and we have that mud I was talking about. I had to keep it really clean, even though we don't have a barn for them. So I had to keep it as clean as possible. I did, and it healed, and she's fine now. I had one of our horses stab himself with a T-post We had been meaning to cover some of our T-posts with covers. You can get these plastic covers, but we didn't get it done in time, and he stabbed his neck with a T-post. So when you talk about adding horses to your farm, just make sure that you are prepared as much as you can before you add horses, because they tend to have these kind of accidents. And if you want to listen to the episode I did with Jill Winger, we talk about that, and she's had some experiences the same way with her horses as well. They just are very fragile. For as big as they are, they're very fragile. And so, these are things that happen on the farm, and these are not the things I love, especially when the vet bill comes and we're like, oh, great, this is great. We have to pay the vet bill. I had to take the one that stabbed himself in the neck. He's fine, by the way. That was my daughter's mounted games pony. And he, I guess, really got, when the vet cleaned him up, he got really close to his trachea. So we were very fortunate that he didn't actually kill himself. So if you have T-posts, make sure you cover those things with those plastic covers, because they can do that. And we know what happened. Our other horse that we have here, he gets food aggressive. And we didn't see it happen, but I just know this is what happened. He gets food aggressive, and we had the hay, too close to the fence line, and we think he just scared the other horse into the fence, because that's really the only way. I mean, he's not a clumsy pony, so it's really the only way he would have hurt himself like that, is if he was scared into it. So anyway, that's just something you got to think about with these animals. But those are the hardest parts, is when the animals get sick or hurt, and you have to do what you have to do to make sure that they are well or protected. But I know I appreciate every day that I have my animals. I appreciate every day that I'm able to help them be as healthy as they are. But there are just those times when it really sucks, So I hope this is not a downer, as far as especially if you haven't started homesteading yet. I hope this is not a downer for you. I hope this is actually a way for you to say, okay, I know this is coming. I know that if I get farm animals, or even just your garden, let's say you never you don't ever add farm animals to your homestead, and you just gardening. There's a lot of things that can happen. Each year is different for a lot of us as far as how our garden is producing. And, you could have beetles come in and wipe out, whole crops and that sort of thing. There's all sorts of things that can happen. And if we take the approach that we're going to learn from our experience, feel the suck, feel the hate, the dislike, feel it, because I don't think there's any reason to just pretend like it doesn't exist. Feel it, and then move on and learn from it as best you can, and try to come out the other end with the appreciation when things are going really well. Be thankful for what you have when you have it. So the message here is that conflict isn't always bad, and when we have these feelings of dislike and hate for certain parts of our journey, that we can come on the other side and just turn things around and understand that this is the way life is, and that we can choose to come out positive on the other side of these things and learn from our experiences. So I hope that was helpful for you. I hope you liked this episode. In February, I plan to record more interview episodes. I just don't have my list of people scheduled yet, so I don't know what's coming. But we'll get back into some more interview episodes real soon. So until then, I'll try to do, a new episode each week with just me. But soon we'll have some really good episodes coming. I have some people in mind, and I'm sure it's going to be great. And don't forget the couple of freebies I have for you. I have the free Homesteading for Beginners checklist that you can get, and I also have the 101 Homestead Income Ideas list that you can get for free. So just remember that is all in the show notes if you want to check that out. And stay positive and keep your homesteading dreams alive and keep working towards them.